The greatest empires in history ran on secret highways. These hidden networks, known as shadow routes, were the clandestine arteries of power for civilizations from Rome to the Mongols. This video will show you the invisible framework that allowed empires to spy, smuggle, and survive against impossible odds. You will learn how covert messages traveled faster than light, how forbidden technology was smuggled across continents, and how entire economies thrived in the dark. How did a single hidden path change the outcome of a war? What forgotten secrets still lie buried along these trails? By the end, you will see the ancient world in a completely new light, understanding the silent forces that truly shaped history. What does it mean for power to move unseen? A Roman merchant moves not on the paved splendor of the Appian Way, but along a forgotten trail, the moonlight barely piercing the dense canopy overhead. In his pouch is not common trade goods, but a sealed message, its contents too volatile for the public eye. This is the reality of a shadow route. These were the unofficial, often secretive pathways that empires used for their most sensitive work. They formed a parallel network, a clandestine web operating just beyond the view of common maps and official records. While the great stone roads were the empire's public face, its brawny arms for moving legions and taxes, the shadow routes were its nervous system, carrying the lifeblood of intelligence and the vital nutrients of emergency supply. Their very purpose was to leave no trace, which is why they pose such a fascinating puzzle for historians today. As archaeologist Dr. Elena Petrov explains, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. These routes were engineered for invisibility. Their success depended on being forgotten, on blending into the landscape so completely that they became one with the wilderness. Think of a military commander awaiting news from a distant front. The fate of thousands, the outcome of an entire war, could rest on a single piece of information carried by a lone runner on one of these hidden trails, a message that never appeared on any official dispatch log. To truly grasp the genius of ancient power, we must understand this duality, the constant interplay between the visible might of public works and the silent, swift efficiency of the private network. The foundation of this entire system lay in its brilliant and often treacherous geography. The Alps presented not a wall, but a weapon. Hannibal's legendary crossing with his war elephants was less a brute force assault and more a masterful use of a shadow corridor, a geographical secret he wielded to achieve total surprise against Rome. The most powerful hidden paths were always carved through the world's most unforgiving terrain. Empires deliberately sought out mountains, deserts, and trackless swamps, places mainstream travel shunned, because their very difficulty guaranteed their secrecy. These routes were never accidental. They were the product of meticulous planning based on deep, often ancient, knowledge of the land. Planners understood seasonal river flows, the precise timing of mountain pass accessibility, and the locations of isolated, often sympathetic, communities that could offer discreet shelter. Consider the Grand Silk Road. While camel caravans moved slowly along the main arteries, paying heavy tariffs at every oasis city, shadow trails snaked through adjacent deserts and high mountain valleys. These parallel paths allowed merchants to bypass official toll stations and hostile territories, smuggling priceless silk, spices, and technologies under the radar. This is how we find them today. Historical geographers uncover these ghost roads by tracing anomalous artifacts, a cache of Chinese silk found in a remote valley far from any known trade hub, or Roman glassware buried near a forgotten desert spring. These scattered clues are the echoes of clandestine traffic, The landscapes that appeared to be nature's greatest obstacles were, in fact, its greatest enablers of secret power. They provided natural cover, strategic overlooks, and a filter that kept the routes safe from all but the most determined and knowledgeable. What other secrets are still locked within these ancient rock faces and shifting sands, waiting for new technologies like satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar to finally reveal their stories? Yet, the most sophisticated secret path is useless without someone to walk it. The true lifeblood of this hidden network was its human element, the specialized couriers who transformed geography into a living, breathing intelligence system. A swift Persian messenger, his lungs burning with the thin night air, carried an empire's command not on a scroll but within his own memory. He was a living, breathing form of encrypted data, a secret weapon in human form. These couriers were the unsung heroes of the shadow routes, selected from specific families or communities sworn to generations of secrecy. Their training was brutal, forging individuals with superhuman endurance, fluency in multiple tongues, and the celestial literacy to navigate by the stars alone. They were far more than just runners. They were the Empire's eyes and ears, the living nodes of its clandestine nervous system. The system they operated within was a masterpiece of logistical planning. Along the vast Achaemenid Persian royal road, hidden way stations were strategically placed, just a single day's hard ride apart. A courier would arrive at one of these secluded posts, pass his verbal message to a fresh, rested colleague, and then collapse while the new runner continued the relay without a moment's pause. This chain of human links could move a command over 1,000 miles in less than a week, a speed that defied the conventional understanding of ancient travel. But their duty did not end at delivery. As they moved through the land, these messengers were constantly observing, gathering whispers of rebellion in a marketplace, noting the movement of unofficial troops, or assessing the mood of a local governor. They were intelligence analysts on the move, and their final report was often as valuable as the message they initially carried. Their greatest protection was their anonymity. They operated without the gleaming armor of a soldier or the official seal of a diplomat. They were ghosts, blending into the dusty roads and crowded caravanserais, their true purpose known only to a select few. Can you picture a king in Persepolis, weighing a decision that could plunge his empire into war, his choice resting entirely on a few quiet words delivered by a breathless, dusty man who arrived in the dead of night and vanished by dawn? The reliability of this human network was absolute, the silent, beating heart of imperial power. And it was this very same principle of trusted, covert movement that would soon be applied to an even more powerful force, the secret flow of wealth that fueled these ancient superpowers. That dark harbor where a ship slips silently past the official docks represents a truth far more powerful than any single secret message. This was the shadow economy, an entire financial system operating in the unseen channels of the ancient world. While official treasuries recorded taxes on grain and olive oil, the real game of power was often played with untaxed cargoes of amber, silk, and spices moving along these covert routes. This was not petty crime, it was high-stakes economic warfare. By bypassing state monopolies and the heavy hand of imperial tax collectors, shadow traders generated enormous, untraceable revenue streams. This black market wealth did not fill the public coffers, it filled the private war chests of emperors and generals, funding covert armies, buying the loyalty of foreign tribes, and financing espionage networks that no official budget could ever acknowledge. Consider the Phoenicians, the master mariners of the ancient Mediterranean. Historical evidence suggests they discovered the rich tin mines of Britain long before their rivals. Tin was not a luxury, it was an absolute necessity, a key component for making bronze weapons and tools. Instead of broadcasting their discovery, they allegedly used a web of secret sea lanes to transport this critical metal directly to their customers, completely cutting out the middlemen. This clandestine control over a vital resource gave them an economic stranglehold on their competitors for centuries. The entire operation relied on a sophisticated and utterly silent logistical network. Hidden coves served as temporary ports, remote caves became secure warehouses, and complicit local officials turned a blind eye for a share of the immense profits. Economic historians now believe this parallel, unrecorded trade may have represented a staggering portion of an empire's total economic activity. It was a massive, ghostly engine of capital that never appeared on any papyrus scroll or stone ledger. The true impact is almost impossible to calculate, but its effects were undeniable. The sudden, unexplained wealth of a city-state, the mysterious funding of a prolonged war, the abrupt collapse of a rival's bronze industry, these were the visible tremors of an invisible economy at work. This hidden flow of wealth was the lifeblood of ambition and the currency of survival. But moving such vast treasures in secret required more than just hidden paths. It demanded an intricate web of watchful eyes and silent protectors to ensure its security. A single whispered word in a rival king's court could topple a throne, a secret carried for miles along a hidden trail to land at the feet of an emperor. Espionage was the ultimate purpose of these shadow routes, transforming them from mere paths into active intelligence networks. While merchants moved goods and couriers moved commands, spies moved the future itself, carrying priceless information on enemy troop numbers, fragile political alliances, and whispers of rebellion brewing in distant provinces. Their work turned information into a weapon as potent as any legion. To operate undetected, these agents perfected the art of the unseen. They were masters of disguise, blending seamlessly into the background of daily life. A spy might travel as a humble merchant within a large caravan, their true mission concealed among bales of cloth and barrels of wine. Another might join a group of religious pilgrims, using the sacred journey as perfect cover for their clandestine movements. Their survival and the success of their mission depended entirely on the secrecy and reliability of the shadow routes they traveled, paths known only to a trusted few within the empire's inner circle. The Byzantine Empire refined this craft to a science. Historical records describe a sophisticated intelligence service that employed cryptographers to encode sensitive messages. These coded documents were then placed inside sealed diplomatic bags, which were not carried on open roads but transported via covert paths by agents trained in evasion and stealth. This system ensured that even if a messenger was intercepted, the critical information inside remained secure and unreadable to the enemy. The entire operation was a testament to the layered security these hidden networks provided. Think of the immense power this gave a ruler. A Byzantine emperor seated in his palace in Constantinople could make a crucial decision about war or peace based on a detailed report of a rival's military weakness, a report that had traveled 1,000 miles through hostile territory without ever being detected. How many battles were won not by superior force, but because a general knew exactly where and when the enemy would strike? How many treaties were signed from a position of overwhelming strength, all because of a single, critical piece of intelligence delivered through these silent channels? The gathering of secrets, however, was only half the battle. Their protection through the art of coded language was equally vital, a silent war of wits fought with ink and ingenuity. A Roman centurion stationed on a windswept northern frontier receives a simple wooden tablet. To any observer, its surface is blank, just a smooth piece of wood used for notes. But the centurion knows the secret. He holds the tablet near a lamp's gentle flame, and as the heat spreads, faint brown letters begin to materialize from the wood's very fibers. A message once invisible now dictates his next move. This was the power of ancient cryptography, a silent war of words fought with ink and ingenuity to protect the empire's most vital secrets. On the shadow routes where interception was a constant threat, a message security was as crucial as its speed. The science of secret writing, or cryptography, employed a range of clever techniques designed to ensure that even if a courier was captured, the information they carried remained useless to the enemy. One of the most famous methods was the substitution cipher, a system where each letter in the original message is replaced by another. The Caesar cipher, named for the great Roman general, shifted every letter in the alphabet by a fixed number of positions. For example, a shift of 3 would turn the letter A into D, B into E, and so on. The word attack might be written as DWWDFN, a meaningless jumble to anyone without the key. But encoding was only one part of the art. Another practice, known as steganography, focused not on scrambling the message, but on hiding its very existence. A spy could weave a vital report into the seemingly innocuous text of a personal letter, or even conceal a tiny, rolled scroll inside a hollowed-out walking stick or within a lump of wax. The goal was to make the message disappear in plain sight, ensuring it was never even identified as a secret communication in the first place. As these methods evolved, they grew in sophistication. Codebooks and early mechanical aids like cipher wheels allowed for more complex encryption, protecting high-level diplomatic correspondence and critical military orders. These systems were so effective that some ancient codes remained unbroken for centuries, their secrets lost to time. This entire cryptographic enterprise relied on a deeply trusted human network. Trained scribes in secure locations performed the encoding and decoding, while the couriers themselves formed a secure chain of custody, ensuring the message's integrity from sender to receiver. Can you envision the immense trust placed in that lone runner, carrying not just a piece of wood, but the fate of a legion, protected by nothing more than a clever trick of chemistry and a shared secret? This constant, hidden battle of wits of creating and breaking codes was the intellectual backbone of the shadow routes, and the intelligence it protected was most critically applied in the theater of war, where a single secret could decide the outcome of an entire campaign. A commander's greatest weapon is not the sword his soldiers carry, but the path the enemy cannot see. For Alexander the Great, pushing his army deep into the heart of the Persian Empire, the open road was a death trap, a predictable line where his forces could be ambushed and his supply wagons starved. His survival depended on a web of hidden paths, pre-scouted by agile runners who mapped every goat trail and hidden canyon. These shadow routes were the clandestine arteries of military logistics, allowing entire armies to move like ghosts through hostile lands. They enabled the surprise flanking maneuvers that shattered enemy formations, the covert resupply of besieged fortresses thought to be doomed, and the silent evacuation of wounded soldiers under the cover of darkness. A commander who mastered these unseen pathways held a decisive advantage, achieving strategic objectives that were simply impossible on the open field. This was the very essence of the ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu's teachings, which exalted the art of deception and the supreme value of moving where the enemy least expects you. High in the Andes, the Inca Empire perfected this principle. Their sprawling domain was connected by an elaborate network of mountain trails, suspension bridges woven from grass, and stone steps carved into sheer cliffs. While the main imperial road was impressive, It was these secondary, hidden paths that allowed their legendary relay runners, the Chasquis, and their soldiers to move with breathtaking speed, often completely invisible from the populated valleys below. How many legendary battles were won not by sheer force, but because one general knew a mountain past the other had dismissed as impassable? The success of entire campaigns, from the deserts of Persia to the forests of Germania, likely hinged on these clandestine supply lines functioning without a single failure. The silent movement of an army, its location a mystery to its foes, was a form of psychological warfare as potent as any charge of cavalry. Yet the same hidden trails that carried soldiers and swords also carried something far more enduring: the quiet exchange of ideas, beliefs, and art that would slowly weave the fabric of history itself. A Buddhist monk's journey along a high mountain pass carried more than just sacred texts. It carried the future of a civilization. While the Grand Silk Road buzzed with the commerce of spices and silk, these secluded shadow routes conducted a far more subtle traffic, the discreet flow of ideas, faith, and art. Here, away from the watchful eyes of imperial censors and state-sanctioned priests, religious and cultural currents could travel in their purest form, unaltered by the political pressures of the public highways. A new spiritual teaching, deemed heterodox or threatening by a powerful empire, could not survive an open journey, but on a hidden trail, a monk or a mystic could carry revolutionary sutras from India to China, or a Christian teacher could transport forbidden gospels through the Roman catacombs, preserving doctrines that would one day reshape the world. These covert networks were not just for escape, they were for connection. Scattered religious communities, persecuted minorities, and philosophical schools used these pathways as a lifeline, maintaining cohesion across vast distances. Early Christians, for instance, did not only worship in hidden catacombs, they moved between them using a web of unmarked paths, sharing teachings and support under the very nose of the Roman authorities. This allowed their faith to solidify and spread with a remarkable consistency, its core message protected from dilution or interference. The same principle applied to artistic styles. A unique method of carving stone, a particular pigment for dyeing cloth, or a revolutionary musical scale could travel from one master to an apprentice in a distant land, all through these unofficial channels. The exchange was never just one way. As Buddhist thought flowed east into China, influencing philosophy and art, Chinese innovations in papermaking and astronomy trickled back west along the same secret corridors. This hidden cultural trade left behind a trail of enigmatic clues for modern archaeologists. The discovery of a Mediterranean glass bead in an ancient Scandinavian burial site, far from any known trade route, is not a random accident. It is a ghostly fingerprint of a covert cultural handshake, a silent testament to a connection that official history never recorded. These artifacts force us to ask a profound question. How many of the cultural foundations we take for granted, the philosophical ideas that define a society or the artistic movements that inspire generations, were actually born in the quiet, unobserved conversations along a forgotten trail? This silent, relentless exchange of knowledge was the cultural bedrock upon which empires were built, and it was matched only by the covert movement of the practical tools that made those empires possible. A single metallurgist fleeing the Hittite heartland with the secret of iron smelting locked in his mind carried more destructive power than an entire army. He was a living library, a walking technological revolution, and his journey along a shadow route would permanently shatter one empire's monopoly and hand another the keys to military dominance. The clandestine transfer of forbidden knowledge was perhaps the most volatile cargo these hidden networks ever bore. While empires exerted immense effort to control sensitive technologies, from advanced metallurgy to agricultural techniques, the shadow routes became the primary conduits for their illicit and often unstoppable diffusion. States guarded these secrets with the same ferocity they reserved for their treasuries. The penalty for leaking the formula for Greek fire, that terrifying incendiary weapon of the Byzantine navy, was almost certainly death. Yet the knowledge still spread. It did not travel on official ships or with diplomatic envoys, but with defecting engineers, opportunistic merchants seeking a colossal payoff, or spies who understood that a scroll detailing a siege engine design was more valuable than any gemstone. This was not merely trade, it was the smuggling of progress itself. The process often involved the movement of the experts themselves. A master papermaker from China, coaxed or coerced to share his craft, could journey west, his skills passing silently from one hidden workshop to another until paper, once an exotic luxury, became a commonplace tool that would eventually fuel the European Renaissance. These experts were the ultimate intellectual contraband. Their knowledge could alter the very fabric of society. The arrival of the stirrup in Europe via stealthy nomadic trails, for instance, revolutionized mounted combat and reshaped the feudal social order. A new irrigation technique, smuggled out of a fertile river valley, could turn a barren territory into a breadbasket, fueling the rise of a new power. The receiving state gained not just an object but a capability, a self-sustaining power that could never be taken back. How many wars were lost because a single secret, a recipe for stronger steel or a design for a more accurate catapult, slipped across a desert with a lone, unremarkable traveler? This silent, relentless flow of innovation was the hidden engine of historical change, a dark and unpredictable current beneath the surface of recorded events. Yet the true marvel is that these fragile, secret networks could sustain such a vital and dangerous flow for centuries, a testament to a resilience that modern networks struggle to match. A bridge collapses on a main Roman road, plunging a military courier and his vital dispatch into a raging river. Yet the empire's command structure does not even falter. Within hours, a backup runner on a parallel, hidden trail has taken up the message, his path pre-planned for exactly this kind of disaster. This was the hidden genius of the shadow network, its resilience. Its strength was not in any single road, but in its built-in redundancy, a web of alternative paths that could be activated the moment a primary route was compromised by weather, bandits, or war. This design principle ensured that the empire's most critical functions, its communication and supply lines, could continue without interruption. It was a system engineered to withstand shocks. Systems analysts today see a direct parallel to the modern internet. When you send an email, the data packets do not travel a single, fixed line. They dynamically seek out the best available path, flowing around congestion or a broken server, just as a Roman courier would divert around a collapsed bridge. The ancient planners understood this logic perfectly. The Mongol Empire's legendary Yam courier system embodied this principle across the vast steppes. It was not one trail but a constellation of them, with way stations positioned to offer multiple routes for their riders. If a river flooded a valley or a local conflict closed a pass, the message would simply flow along a different, pre-scouted channel. The Empire's intelligence never stopped moving. This capacity for adaptation was a cornerstone of imperial stability. A single point of failure could not bring down the entire network. A rebellion in one province could be isolated, its news still reaching the capital while its supply lines were silently cut by using alternative trails. It prevented local disasters from escalating into systemic collapse. The true lesson for modern network designers lies in this ancient foresight. We build robust systems with backup servers and redundant power supplies, but these empires built redundancy into the very landscape, into the secret knowledge of their couriers. They accepted that failure was inevitable, so they designed a system that was not just strong but smart, one that could heal itself. And from this resilient, ever-adapting web, powerful and specialized hubs would naturally emerge, concentrating the network's intelligence at critical crossroads. A remote Saharan oasis shimmering in the heat served as a silent conference room for rival empires. Far from the prying eyes of their respective capitals, agents could meet here to exchange maps, negotiate secret treaties, or transfer forbidden goods with absolute deniability. This was the critical function of borderlands and frontier zones, the true hubs of the shadow network. These peripheral regions, often seen as backwaters by central authorities, thrived on ambiguity. Their very distance from imperial cores meant they were less patrolled, less regulated, and more open to the fluid interactions that official policy would never permit. In the rugged passes of the Caucasus Mountains or the vast emptiness of the Sahara's fringes, the rigid lines on a map dissolved. Here, a merchant could be a spy, a nomad a kingmaker, and a dusty caravanserai the center of a clandestine world. The local populations were not merely bystanders in this process, they were its essential architects. Tribes that had lived in these borderlands for generations held the irreplaceable knowledge of secret passes, hidden water sources, and seasonal trails. An empire did not conquer this knowledge, it had to negotiate for it. Alliances with border chieftains were not a matter of convenience, but a strategic necessity for any power wishing to operate in the shadows. These local guides became the intermediaries, the trusted voices who could vouch for a stranger's purpose and ensure safe passage through a labyrinth of canyons or dunes. This arrangement created a unique power dynamic. A tribal leader in a remote mountain valley, whose name was unknown in the great capital cities, could wield immense influence by controlling access to a critical hidden path. He could choose to feed information to one empire while starving another, subtly shifting the balance of power with a single decision. How many imperial edicts drafted in marble halls were ultimately shaped by the whispered counsel of a desert scout? The periphery in these moments became the true center of covert action. The strategies perfected in these terrestrial borderlands, the reliance on local knowledge and the use of deniable intermediaries would not remain on land. They provided the essential blueprint for the next great frontier of secret exchange, the trackless expanse of the sea. A Phoenician ship cuts through the moonlit waves, its sail darkened and its course set not by the common sea lanes, but by a star map known only to its captain. This vessel carries a cargo more valuable than gold, British tin, the essential ingredient for bronze, and it moves along a maritime shadow route to ensure its rivals never learn the source. The open ocean, vast and trackless, became the perfect canvas for these clandestine highways. They were defined by secret knowledge of hidden coves for covert resupply, of favorable currents that sped a ship along an unseen path, and of uncharted islands that served as neutral meeting grounds for transactions that could never happen in a bustling, watched port. For empires whose power was built on the water, from the Phoenicians to the Venetians, these routes were the ultimate strategic asset. They enabled the establishment of trade monopolies on goods like Tyrian purple dye or Chinese silk, allowed for the smuggling of contraband past naval blockades, and facilitated surprise naval attacks launched from where the enemy least expected. The evidence for these ghostly voyages often only surfaces centuries later. Nautical archaeologists are repeatedly puzzled by shipwrecks discovered far from any known trade route, resting in deep, dangerous waters. These are not vessels lost to a storm while on a common journey. They are ships that were taking calculated risks off the beaten path, gambling on a secret course for a monumental reward. Maintaining this secrecy required elaborate deception on shore. false manifests listed worthless ballast instead of priceless spices, and loading operations were conducted under the cover of darkness in isolated bays, far from the official ports and their record-keeping scribes. The most vital asset was not the ship itself, but the knowledge in the captain's mind, a living atlas of secret ways passed down from father to son, a heritage of hidden geography more closely guarded than any treasure chest. What other lost ships still holding their clandestine cargoes lie waiting on the seafloor, their final voyages a testament to a secret war of commerce and power waged across the waves? This mastery of the hidden sea lanes finds a powerful parallel on land, in the silent, fluid movements of the nomadic cultures who turned the open steppe into their own domain of secret influence. The open steppe was a sea of grass, its horizons unbroken by walls or forts, yet it was crisscrossed by fluid highways known only to those born to its rhythms. Nomadic tribes like the Scythians did not just live on this vast expanse, they were its nervous system, the invisible conduits moving goods and whispers between the great sedentary empires. Their entire way of life, defined by seasonal migration and far-reaching kinship ties, created a shadow network of unparalleled efficiency and secrecy. While a Roman road was a fixed, vulnerable line on a map, a nomadic route was a living, breathing entity, shifting with the seasons and the herds, impossible for any central authority to fully control or map. This deep, generational knowledge of the terrain, from hidden mountain passes to secret springs in the desert, made them invaluable partners for empires. A Chinese emperor, for instance, could never openly trade with a rival Parthian kingdom, but he could discreetly engage a Scythian chieftain. The nomads would transport bundles of silk or other luxuries across the continent, moving with their herds and thus bypassing every official checkpoint and tariff station along the traditional Silk Road. Their cultural codes, particularly the sacred laws of hospitality toward travelers, provided a perfect cover. A stranger with a sensitive cargo could find shelter and safe passage within a nomadic camp, his business protected by unwritten rules that were more binding than any imperial decree. This system thrived because the nomads owed allegiance to no single state. They operated in the interstices, the empty spaces between empires, acting as neutral couriers in a world of entrenched rivals. Their independence was their greatest asset, allowing them to serve multiple masters or switch allegiances as the political winds shifted. This raises a pivotal question. When a powerful nomadic confederation like the Xiongnu rose to dominance, it could standardize and secure these shadow routes, creating a golden age of clandestine trade. But when that confederation collapsed into feuding factions, the network would fray, plunging trade and communication into chaos. The agility of the nomads was the ultimate testament to a network built not on stone, but on trust and motion. And this same principle of fluid, adaptive movement would soon find its most complex expression not in the open wilds, but within the crowded, stone-lined arteries of the ancient city itself. The same stealth that defined desert caravans and mountain trails found its ultimate expression in the crowded, shadowed heart of the ancient city itself. Beneath the grand marble facades and bustling forums of Rome, a second, secret city thrived. Labyrinthine alleyways barely wide enough for a single person, twisted between tenement blocks, leading to unmarked doors and basement taverns where whispers held more power than any public decree. These were the urban shadow routes, a covert network of backstreets, sewers, and hidden tunnels that enabled the empire's most sensitive and illicit activities to unfold just steps away from the oblivious crowds. While senators gave grand speeches in the sunlight, the real plots that shaped history were often forged in these dimly lit spaces, far from the Senate's ears. This parallel infrastructure was not an accident but a necessity, a clandestine circulatory system for the city's political and economic life. The black market operated freely here, moving everything from untaxed Egyptian grain to stolen imperial correspondence through these concealed channels. Archaeological discoveries in places like Pompeii offer silent testimony to this hidden world. Excavations have revealed houses with secret rooms concealed behind sliding walls, and sophisticated escape tunnels leading from wealthy villas directly to the city's outskirts, providing a discreet exit for those who had fallen from favor or needed to vanish without a trace. Control of these pathways was not left to chance. Powerful guilds, whether of bakers, silversmiths, or dockworkers, and clandestine religious or philosophical societies often governed access to these routes. They used them to protect trade secrets, coordinate price fixing, and transmit urgent messages to their members with a security that the open streets could never offer. The constant noise and chaotic movement of urban life provided the perfect camouflage. A conspirator could slip into a bustling market crowd and, with a few turns down the right alley, be in a secure safe house, his movements completely masked by the city's own vibrant energy. This forces us to reconsider some of history's most pivotal moments. How many political coups were finalized in a cellar beneath a seemingly ordinary tavern? How many economic crises were triggered by a deal struck in a hidden room behind a temple? The true levers of power in the ancient metropolis were not always in the palaces or forums, but in these forgotten spaces where light rarely reached. The intricate organization required to maintain such a complex urban web could not be managed by a faceless guild alone. It demanded the enduring oversight and vested interest of a single, powerful entity, a family dynasty with everything to lose. An emperor's command could be countermanded by a single sealed letter from a private villa. In the shadows of every great empire, powerful families and dynasties operated their own clandestine networks, rivaling the state's own system in efficiency and reach. These were not mere merchant guilds, but sophisticated private enterprises built on generations of loyalty and secrecy, allowing a single clan to shape imperial policy from behind the throne. The Medici of Renaissance Florence are a famous example, but their model existed millennia earlier. In ancient China, aristocratic families like the Kui or the Wang maintained extensive courier services and trade routes that spanned the empire and crossed into foreign lands. Their messengers moved with an authority that bypassed provincial governors, their caravans carrying not just silk and porcelain, but sensitive political intelligence and the private wealth needed to bribe officials or fund private armies. This was power operating entirely outside the official bureaucracy. The primary loyalty of every agent in this web was not to the emperor or the state, but to the family patriarch. This created a de facto state within a state, a parallel power structure whose interests did not always align with the imperial court. During times of political turmoil or a disputed succession, these networks became absolutely vital. A family could quietly move its vast assets, gold, sacred texts, heirloom weapons along these secure, private routes to a safe haven, ensuring the clan's survival and ability to re-emerge when the political winds shifted. How many imperial edicts were quietly subverted because a powerful family's intelligence network provided them with advance warning, allowing them to reposition their resources and influence the outcome? The very existence of these private webs was a silent challenge to central authority, a reminder that true power often resided not in the palace, but in the hands of those who controlled the invisible pathways of information and wealth. And this deep, dynastic influence inevitably extended beyond commerce and politics, weaving itself into the very spiritual fabric of society. The quiet scriptorium of a monastery, where monks meticulously copied sacred texts, often held far more worldly secrets. Religious institutions, from remote cliffside sanctuaries to bustling urban temples, became the ultimate covert hubs for the ancient world's shadow networks. Their unique position granted them a form of diplomatic immunity, a sanctity that deterred the prying eyes of imperial soldiers and tax collectors alike. This moral authority provided the perfect cover for a range of clandestine activities, all shielded by the public perception of piety and divine protection. During the Roman Empire's periodic persecutions, the Christian catacombs were more than just burial sites. They were clandestine meeting points and escape routes. Messages were passed between worshippers, fugitives were guided to safety, and vital supplies were distributed, all within a labyrinth hidden beneath the city's feet. This network, operating under the very nose of the authorities, allowed a suppressed faith to not only survive but to coalesce and grow with remarkable organization. Later, as Christianity became the state religion, the roles reversed and monastic orders across Europe inherited this function. Their sprawling estates, often located in strategically isolated regions, were perfect way stations for sensitive communications. A monk traveling between monasteries on official business could just as easily be carrying a sealed letter from a local noble to a rival king, his religious habit rendering him invisible and his journey above suspicion. The immense wealth these institutions accumulated through donations made them powerful banking centers in the shadows. A king could discreetly deposit funds at one abbey, and an ally could withdraw an equivalent sum from another, a covert transfer of capital that funded rebellions or secured alliances without a single coin ever needing to cross a patrolled border. Their vast libraries, repositories of accumulated knowledge, became centers for the discreet exchange of technological and philosophical ideas that might have been deemed heretical in the public square. How many wars were averted because of a secret negotiation brokered within the silent walls of a cloister? How many technological advances, like improved watermill designs or agricultural techniques, were shared between monks under the guise of theological discussion, their practical applications quietly reshaping the world outside? This sacred camouflage was profoundly effective, but it often relied on a partnership with the wild landscape itself, where nature's grandeur provided the final layer of secrecy. The annual floodwaters of the Nile brought more than just fertile black soil to the Egyptian fields. They silently carved temporary channels and concealed waterways, perfect for the pharaoh's agents to move gold, messages, and spies under the cover of the swelling river. This was the ultimate environmental clockwork, where the seasons themselves dictated the rhythm of covert operations. Mastery over nature's cycles was not just an agricultural skill, it was an essential component of clandestine strategy, a silent partner in the art of moving unseen. Ancient planners had to be expert readers of the landscape, understanding that a shadow route was not a permanent road but a fleeting opportunity, a door that nature opened only at specific times. A desert trail, deadly under the summer sun, became a viable highway in the cool of winter. A high mountain pass blocked by snow for most of the year offered a brief, secure corridor during the short summer months. These predictable seasonal windows created a natural security system, limiting access to those who possessed the precise knowledge of when to move. The logistics of such a system demanded constant, real-time intelligence. Scouts were constantly assessing river levels, snowmelt, and even the growth of certain plants that signaled a trail was clear. A messenger arriving a week too early could find his path still blocked by a raging torrent, while one arriving a week too late could be trapped by an early blizzard. This required a fluid, adaptive network that could shift its pathways with the turning of the seasons. The great irony is that this reliance on nature also made the networks vulnerable. A prolonged drought could desiccate a chain of desert oases, permanently closing a vital covert link. A period of unusual cooling could keep a crucial mountain pass sealed year-round, severing a critical intelligence line. How many shadow routes, once thriving arteries of empire, were simply abandoned when the climate shifted, their existence erased not by war, but by a subtle change in rainfall patterns. The environment was a fickle guardian, offering its secrets only to those who could listen to its rhythms and adapt to its unpredictable whims. This constant dance with nature's variables introduced a profound element of risk, where the greatest threat was not always the landscape itself, but the potential for human betrayal lying in wait along these seasonal paths. A Byzantine agent melts from the shadows, his hands a blur as he replaces a sealed diplomatic pouch with an identical forgery. The original message, detailing a fake troop movement, continues its journey, now a weapon aimed squarely at the enemy who believes they have intercepted a priceless secret. This silent, high-stakes theater was the essence of counterintelligence on the shadow routes. For every empire relying on these covert paths, the fear of a compromised messenger or a tapped line was a constant, chilling reality. Protecting the network demanded a parallel system of surveillance and deception, a hidden war fought within a hidden war. The Roman frumentarii, often called the empire's secret service, were masters of this dark art. Historical fragments suggest they employed elaborate methods to detect surveillance, from leaving subtle, pre-arranged marks at way stations to using complex recognition signals to verify the loyalty of a contact in a crowded inn. A single wrong password or a missing hand gesture could mean the difference between a successful mission and a fatal ambush. Authentication was a matter of life and death. Beyond ciphers, messengers and their contacts used a range of physical tokens, from broken coins that fit back together to specific types of knotted cords, to prove their identities. These procedures were not mere formalities. The consequences of failure were absolute. A messenger caught with a false token would vanish, his mission and his life ending in some forgotten ravine. This relentless pressure fueled a cycle of innovation and paranoia. As interception methods grew more sophisticated, so too did the security protocols, forcing routes to become more convoluted and trusted contacts to become fewer. This intricate dance raises a haunting question. How many of history's great betrayals were not acts of simple treachery, but the direct result of a shadow route being expertly compromised? The very measures designed to protect these clandestine pathways also made them more fragile, slowly strangling the networks they were built to defend. The final undoing of a shadow route was often as silent as its operation. One season, a covert messenger would stop at a hidden mountain way station, and the next no one would arrive. The path would slowly be reclaimed by undergrowth, its purpose fading from memory with the empire it once sustained. The collapse of a centralized imperial authority usually meant the end of these sophisticated networks. Without the immense resources of a state to fund the way stations, train the couriers, and enforce the secrecy, the entire intricate system became unsustainable. The knowledge itself, so carefully guarded for generations, would simply vanish, lost to time like a language with no remaining speakers. This decay was accelerated by new forces in the world. The rise of more powerful, centralized states with better organized border patrols made large-scale smuggling far more difficult. The gradual shift toward more transparent, regulated international trade, backed by complex treaties, reduced the profitability and necessity of clandestine merchant operations. Most decisively, technological revolutions in communication, from the telegraph to the radio, rendered a week-long relay of human runners obsolete for all but the most remote or paranoid of operations. Yet, the legacy of these hidden highways did not simply disappear. It persisted in the local folklore of mountain villages, where stories of ghostly travelers on moonlit trails were passed down for centuries. It endured in the practical knowledge of nomadic tribes, who continued to use the old, secret passes long after the empires that once paid them had turned to dust. The core principles of these ancient systems were rediscovered and reinvented by later clandestine networks. Historians see a direct conceptual line from the redundant pathways of the Roman frumentarii to the safe houses and evasion routes of the Underground Railroad, which guided people to freedom using a similarly secret and resilient web. The resistance movements of the Second World War operated on the same fundamental logic, relying on trusted local guides, covert way stations, and complex recognition signals that would have felt intimately familiar to a Byzantine spy. Even today, the physical remnants of these routes are still being uncovered. A hiker in the Andes might stumble upon the ruins of a small, isolated stone structure that matches no known Incan settlement pattern, only to realize it was a clandestine Chasqui relay post. An archaeologist surveying from the air might detect the faint, straight line of a buried Roman road that leads not to a city, but to a long-forgotten coastal cave. Each of these discoveries is a puzzle piece, slowly revealing the true scale and sophistication of this hidden world. So what is the ultimate lesson these silent pathways teach us? It is that resilience lies not in a single, unbreakable chain, but in a web of alternatives. It is that security often depends on moving where no one thinks to look. The decline of the shadow routes did not mark their failure, but rather completed their story, setting the stage for our own modern quest to unravel their enduring secrets. A laser scan from an aircraft paints the jungle canopy in a ghostly green light, and beneath it, the earth reveals its secrets. In the dense Guatemalan rainforest, where no footpath seems possible, LiDAR technology has uncovered a sprawling web of ancient causeways and hidden trails, a complete network invisible from the ground. This is not science fiction. It is the new reality of archaeology, where tools like ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery are peeling back the layers of time to expose the physical skeleton of the shadow routes. For centuries, these paths existed only in theory and fragmented historical accounts. Now, we can see their precise contours etched into the landscape, confirming their existence on a scale that has stunned researchers. The history books are being rewritten in real time, proving that ancient empires possessed covert infrastructures far more sophisticated and extensive than anyone had dared to presume. In the deserts of the Middle East, satellite imagery has pinpointed the ruins of small, isolated caravanserais positioned miles from any known Silk Road artery. These were not public inns for common merchants, but clandestine way stations, offering discreet shelter, fresh animals, and secure storage for caravans moving contraband or sensitive information away from official scrutiny. Each of these discoveries is a time capsule of clandestine logistics. The materials used in a hidden rope bridge, the specific layout of a subterranean storage facility, even the types of food waste found at a remote site, all provide new insights into the daily operation of these networks. They tell us who was traveling, what they were carrying, and how they managed to remain undetected. The painstaking work of archaeologists in the field is slowly, methodically, piecing together a map of the ancient world's hidden side. It is a giant, global puzzle where every excavated shard of pottery and every map trail adds another piece. What will we learn when the next leap in technology allows us to peer even deeper into the earth, or to chemically analyze the residues left in a clay pot and trace them back to a single, secret mine? The evidence being unearthed today does more than just validate old theories. It opens entirely new chapters, forcing us to ask what the existence of such a vast, organized, and secret world means for our understanding of power itself. A quiet academic debate can reshape our entire vision of the ancient world. In lecture halls and across journal pages, historians are locked in a fundamental disagreement over the very nature of shadow routes. Were they a meticulously planned, state-controlled secret weapon, or simply an organic web of opportunistic paths forged by clever merchants and local guides? The answer depends entirely on how you read the scant, silent evidence left behind. One camp points to the sheer logistical feat of the Persian relay system, or the standardized construction of hidden Incan way stations as proof of a top-down imperial design. They argue that only a powerful, centralized state could fund and maintain such a complex, continent-spanning apparatus for moving spies and sensitive commands. This view casts ancient emperors as master strategists, pulling invisible strings from their thrones. The opposing perspective sees a messier, more vibrant reality. These scholars look at the anomalous Chinese silk found in a remote British bog, far from any official Roman trade route, and see not a state spy but a daring private merchant. They argue that shadow routes were a bottom-up phenomenon, a grassroots network that blossomed in the gaps of imperial control, created by locals, nomads, and traders who simply knew a better, quieter way to get things done. For them, true power resided not in the palace but in the collective cunning of countless individuals. This debate is forced upon historians by the nature of the evidence itself. With no official maps or administrative records for these secret paths, scholars must become detectives, piecing together clues from cryptic poetry, unusual artifact distributions, and passing mentions in texts about entirely different subjects. A single line in a merchant's diary about avoiding a toll station can become a pivotal piece of evidence for the organic model. To bring rigor to this puzzle, researchers are now turning to network theory. They create digital simulations of the ancient world, testing how information and goods would have flowed through different hypothetical route structures. Could a message have reached its destination faster on a decentralized, merchant-run web, or on a state-designed hub-and-spoke system? These digital experiments are not about finding a single right answer, but about understanding the possibilities and constraints that shaped these hidden worlds. How does our view of imperial power shift if we accept that a king's most urgent command traveled on a path his own engineers never built, relying on the loyalty of a mountain tribe his army could never fully conquer? This scholarly discourse is a necessary antidote to romanticizing the past, forcing us to see the ancient world in all its complex, contradictory glory. And the principles emerging from these theoretical models are proving to be surprisingly vital, offering urgent lessons for the fragile networks that underpin our own modern world. A cybersecurity analyst today, studying the complex knots of an Inca quipu, is looking at a direct ancestor of modern digital encryption. Both systems rely on the same core principle, transforming meaningful information into a format that is useless to anyone without the key. This connection between ancient craft and contemporary code reveals a profound truth. The strategic principles that powered shadow routes for millennia are not relics, they are blueprints. The ancient obsession with redundancy, the practice of having multiple hidden paths, is the direct conceptual forerunner to the modern internet's design. When you send an email, the data packets do not travel a single, fragile line. They dynamically flow around broken servers and network congestion, seeking the best available path, just as a Roman courier would divert around a collapsed bridge. This built-in resilience is what keeps our digital world running smoothly despite constant, invisible attacks. In the realm of data security, the ancient art of steganography, hiding a message's very existence, is more relevant than ever. Modern security experts now hide sensitive data within the code of a mundane digital image or an audio file, making the information invisible to all but the intended recipient, a direct digital echo of a spy concealing a scroll inside a hollowed-out walking stick. Beyond the digital world, business strategists are urgently looking to these historical examples to design supply chains that can withstand 21st-century disruptions. A company that relies on a single factory or a single shipping lane is as vulnerable as an empire dependent on one paved road. The lesson from the Mongol Yam system is to build a web of alternative suppliers and logistics corridors, ensuring that when a natural disaster or a geopolitical conflict closes one route, the entire operation does not grind to a halt. Yet the most enduring lesson is perhaps the most human one. The ancient networks remind us that technology alone is never enough. The most sophisticated cipher or the most redundant pathway is worthless without trusted individuals to carry the key and walk the trail. The success of every shadow route ultimately hinged on social bonds, on generations of loyalty within a family of couriers, on the unspoken codes of hospitality in a nomadic camp, on the silent understanding between a spy and his contact. Our modern systems, for all their silicon and fiber optics, still depend on this same human element, on the integrity of the programmers, the vigilance of the analysts, and the trust between partners. How can we intentionally design this social resilience back into our hyper-technological world? Applying this ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges creates a powerful bridge across time, forcing us to confront a final, critical question about the invisible frameworks we are building for our own future. A Roman governor receives a sealed order, its contents authorizing him to use every shadow route at his disposal to spy on a neighboring kingdom, a nation officially called friend and ally. His duty to Rome demands this betrayal, plunging him into a moral silence where the safety of the state clashes with the sanctity of his word. This was the profound ethical fog that shrouded the entire world of shadow routes. Their power was undeniable, but their use consistently forced leaders and agents into a landscape of grays, where every tactical advantage seemed to come at the cost of a principle. The very acts that secured an empire's borders, espionage against allies, smuggling to evade state taxes, or alliances with brutal local warlords, were the same ones that corroded the trust and moral authority that legitimacy was built upon. Ancient political philosophers did not shy away from this dilemma. In India, the strategist Kautilya, in his Arthashastra, argued explicitly that a king must be prepared to use deceit and clandestine methods when the survival of the kingdom was at stake. For him, the moral calculus was stark. The greater good of stability and order justified actions that would be condemned in a more perfect world. This cold realism echoes through the ages, a perpetual debate over whether the dirty hands of statecraft are a necessary evil or a fatal corruption. Yet the weight of these decisions did not fall only on kings and spies. Consider the common farmer whose well was secretly used as a hidden cache for smuggled goods, his silence bought with a few coins or secured with a quiet threat. Or the entire village discreetly relocated because its land sat astride a newly vital covert path, their lives upended for a cause they would never know. The silent, efficient operation of these networks often depended on the exploitation of the anonymous and the powerless, people who became collateral damage in a silent war they never consented to fight. How then do we judge the historical figures who presided over this system? Do we condemn the Roman governor for his espionage, or do we absolve him for acting in what he saw as Rome's ultimate interest? There are no simple verdicts. To understand these networks fully is to accept that their legacy is one of brilliance and moral compromise. a dual inheritance that forces us to look beyond the grand monuments and see the human choices and the human costs hidden in the shadows. This moral ambiguity finds its most intimate expression not in the halls of power, but in the personal letters and private struggles of the individuals who manage these secrets. A single Mongol messenger, his identity erased by the blizzard's fury, presses forward through knee-deep snow. His mission is a warning that could save a city from siege, yet his name will never appear in any official chronicle. His story survives only as a whispered legend in the valleys near what was once Karakoram, a testament to the countless anonymous lives that powered the shadow routes. While we study empires and their grand strategies, it is the personal stories of the couriers, the spies, and the merchants that breathe true life into these hidden networks. Their daily existence was a tapestry of extreme risk and quiet reward, a reality often preserved not in stone inscriptions, but in the fragile threads of oral tradition and the casual notes scribbled in a diary's margins. Consider the palpable anxiety of a Byzantine scribe, his hand trembling as he encodes a message that could prevent a war, knowing that a single error in his cipher could mean death for a distant agent. Or feel the suppressed exhilaration of a Phoenician merchant, recording in his private log the immense profit from a successful run of untaxed purple dye, a thrill he could share with no one. These individuals were not cogs in a machine, they were the heart and soul of the system, their courage and ingenuity fueling operations that shaped continents. Their experiences were not always tales of triumph. For every messenger who survived a perilous crossing, there were those who vanished, their fate unknown, their final moments a mystery buried with them in some unmarked desert grave. A trader's journal might recount the heartbreak of a lost caravan, picked apart by bandits on a trail he thought was secure, wiping out not just his wealth but his family's legacy. These personal accounts force us to remember that history is built from human choices and human sacrifices, not just cold policy. What other stories of quiet heroism or profound loss are still waiting to be found, tucked between the lines of a forgotten ledger or hinted at in a child's heirloom toy discovered in a remote cave? Each artifact is a potential key, unlocking not just a fact but a feeling, adding a rich and essential emotional layer to our understanding of these silent highways. The silent footsteps of forgotten couriers echo far beyond the ancient world, reminding us that history is never just a story of marble monuments and marching legions. Shadow routes were the vital, beating heart of imperial power, the invisible framework that made the impossible feats of logistics, espionage, and cultural exchange possible. They were not mere footnotes, but the very text upon which the fate of civilizations was written. From the relentless relay of Persian messengers to the moonlit voyages of Phoenician ships, these networks reveal a timeless sophistication in the art of moving unseen. They understood that true resilience lies not in a single unbreakable chain, but in a fluid, adaptable web of alternatives, a principle that feels remarkably modern. As the historian John Key once reflected, the most enduring empires were those that mastered not just the visible, but the invisible realms of control. This hidden world challenges us to look beyond the surface of every official story, to question the grand narratives and search for the subtle currents that truly shaped our past. So I leave you with this thought: which of these hidden mysteries captures your imagination the most? Was it the silent runners of the Incan trails, or the coded messages of Byzantine spies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into history's unseen corridors, subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest enigmas. Together, we will keep pulling at these hidden threads, unraveling the secrets of the past one story